Um, Welcome everybody, and thanks for coming. So wateroperator.org, if you haven't heard of it, is a website for water and wastewater operators. And again, our funding comes from RCAP, which is a technical assistance provider in the States, as well as through US EPA. And so they fund us basically to provide resources and to support small water and wastewater systems. And so some of the things we have are obviously geared towards the states. And because EPA is our funder, there's some things about Canadian provinces we probably don't have in our site, but there's a lot of useful information here. And knowing that you guys are all part of the ABC family, if you will, like many of the states, which is how I met Kalpna, there's a lot of information here that's useful to you. And so what we're going to do today is go through this. We're an unbiased source of information. We host everything from every type of TA provider, trainer, that's available to us. And it's all sorted in a number of ways. So quickly, I just want to mention about the water survey. I know there's a water survey of Canada. Illinois is the only state with a water survey in the States. And so, and our water survey was started because of cholera and typhoid outbreaks in the 1890s. And the idea, our state legislature wanted someone to investigate why this was occurring and investigate how to solve those problems. And so the water survey was brought in and formed. Today, we're an agency much like a state geological survey or even a USGS. We collect data, groundwater data. I'm in the groundwater section. We also house the state of Illinois' well logs. We have about 500,000 well logs on file. We have a lab that does water quality analysis, mostly for private well owners, but we also do a lot of public service. PWC here stands for the private well class, which is the class that was mentioned in my bio. And then we do a lot of applied research, working with communities, doing pump tests, groundwater modeling. You know, the Chicago area, for instance, has grown so much that they've depleted the groundwater resources there. And our scientists are working with them to figure out how to deal with that, since the population in that area is continuing to grow. And a lot of people go, well, Lake Michigan's right there, why don't you use it? Well, we started using Lake Michigan in 1980, and the Great Lakes states and the Canadian provinces on the Great Lakes all went together and sued Illinois for taking water out of Lake Michigan. And it went all the way to the US Supreme Court, and we're capped at how much water we can take out. So even though the lake is sitting there and it's at some of the historic high levels recently, we can't use water out of Lake Michigan any more than we're already taking. And so I apologize for that noise. I'm going to get rid of that real quick. Okay, sorry about that. So as an example, here's our files contain records going back that 125 years, which 2020 is our 125th anniversary. This is a small town in Illinois that had a typhoid outbreak in 1916. And this is in our files. Water survey scientists went there. They only had half of their town sewered. They had a water treatment plant they just built in 1913 that they weren't using because the mayor said it was too expensive. I don't know if that sounds familiar to anybody, but we still have those issues today. So we went there assuming that it was going to be one of those two sources. It turned out it was the Pena Ice Cream Company, which you can see that on the thing there in the middle. They were the milk purveyor in town. 7 different farmers put their milk in one large container that everybody used the same bucket to get milk out of. And that's what caused the typhoid problem there, which is an interesting story in itself. So getting to our topic today, wateroperator.org, it's just like the name says, it's www.wateroperator.org. You go there, you'll get this URL. This is what it'll look like. We have a calendar, we have resources, and we have a blog, as well as we have put out a newsletter. And I'm going to go through how to get to that information. And so what it really is a clearinghouse. We have over 15,000 documents that we link to that are all free and publicly available. So anyone in the world can look online and find these things and download them. And we've done a lot of legwork to try to write summaries of what these documents are so that you don't have to download 20 different things and try to figure out if it's the one you're really looking for. You can read the summary and find out that way. We created an interface by bringing in about 20 small water system operators in Illinois. We set them around a big table, had them work with us for a day. They told us what was easy to use and what wasn't. And so hopefully we've used that knowledge well to make something that's useful to you all. And in addition, it supports operators that can call us, email us, request help finding resources. And we don't have as much of a network in Canada, but we certainly will still try to help you find information. If someone were to call us and ask for information, our job is to support you, and that's really what we try to do. So as I mentioned, I have 18,000 links in here. The site's been around since 2009. And so we went through this last summer and took out some of the older documents where there were newer documents that were better, or whether they were redundant, or whether they're actually outdated. And so currently there's about 15,000 free publicly available documents in there, as well as a national calendar for the states that lists over 11, probably closer to 13,000 events every year. And these come from organizations that, even though, well, they're all useful and they're all vetted by us. So when you Google something and try to search that way, you get so many ads and so much stuff that's not relevant, or it's from a purveyor that's got a, financial interest or whatever. We go through and we don't include a lot of those things from like private businesses that are there to make money. It's mostly associations, states and feds, and those type of folks. But as I mentioned, we write summaries and have complete details, and it also puts everything in one place. And so the example, I'm not going to show you much about the event calendar because it doesn't list the Canadian events, but I'm going to show you a couple examples from Washington State, as well as how you can use this and our calendar to find events that you can attend from home and that are useful to you. So again, when you go to our front page, you can go up at the top and search under event calendar, or click on search the calendar, and it takes you to this page. I used a dated version here. We're doing webinars in 2020. We just did one on groundwater and wells last week. But if you go to our page, you'll see a recent list, a more recent list with the 20 webinars. But when you hit the select button, it asks you for, you can pick state, host, category, or type. And type being training, conference, certification exam. And so you can search that way. Most folks are looking for information in their state. And so I put Washington up here. When I click on Washington, here's what I see in our calendar currently, based on the TA providers and the trainers that are in Washington State that are doing classes that are either free and operator related, or if there's a fee, they have to be offered for CEUs. And so you can see the different groups here. And as an example, if I click on the Pacific Northwest Section AWBA, it brings up this page that links back to their website that describes how many CEUs it's worth in Washington State, how much it costs, who to contact, all the details you need. And the point of our calendar is that we go to all the trainers' calendars and put it all in a database and make it all available in one place. So if you're used to using one trainer or another trainer, you may not realize groups like HAWK, for instance, do training all over the country, probably in Canada as well, related to their equipment. And many times those are worth CEUs. And so they're available then as a class enlisted here. The other place where it really benefits a Canadian operator, water or wastewater, is through our calendar. And so I'm purposely showing you a dated calendar from April 2020. These are all the webinars that were available online in April. After COVID hit and things started to shut down, you can see there's certain groups, and in the United States, RCAC, the Rural Community Assistance Corporation, which is is the Western RCAP regional affiliate, is one of the few, along with Illinois section that I'm a member of, AWWA, that have been doing webinars for a long time. So you can see there's a smattering of these events, but we're still showing almost the whole month here. And that's all the training from 800 different providers that are webinars across the country. This is what it looks like today. We can't even get through past the first week. We're not to the bottom of Tuesday or Wednesday, or we are Wednesday, Tuesday there. Everyone's certainly taken up the banner, just like we're online today. And there's a lot of training out there. Our page is set up on the calendar that if there's more than 3 events on a given day, it just shows who the host of the event is. And that's just for brevity. If I went back to the first page we looked at, it showed you more details. Well, to get to that detail, you leave it as webinar live online, and then you go to the second select button and you can pick a topic. So if I pick groundwater, these are all the groundwater webinars that are available in September. As a groundwater hydrologist, we just did a class on groundwater and wells for water and wastewater systems, which was recorded, by the way. If you want to see it, it's also free. And this gives you an idea. The American Groundwater Trust is doing a webinar on the 24th on PFAS, and they've got credit for it in Missouri. It's very likely that it's attributable to, it's something anyone can use. And that's the advantage of these webinars, is that even if you're not getting CEUs for it, or maybe you can go to your agency and like EOCP and see if they'll give you credit for a given webinar, and you can do that in advance. But it's useful information. And if you're trying to learn, there's a concern about PFAS, for example. So if I click on that, it gives me again the details. Now this one is not free, but it is for credit in Missouri. And so we do provide that. And there's all the details. It goes back to American Groundwater Trust website. And so we're really a facilitator. We don't do our own training, albeit we have one class online on groundwater and wells. Our job is to really get information to you as an operator about the different kinds of events that might be available to you. So again, you can search other ways. So I searched for webinar online, and then over in the keyword search, I typed in COVID. And so these are the events going on in September that are online and have COVID as a topic. And so some of these are actually conferences like the VWEA, that's Virginia Water Environment Association, Water Jam, and the Indiana Association, American Waterworks District Fall Meeting. That's a full day event. One of the talks that day is on COVID. And so it's an opportunity to learn more about those kind of topics. And you can type anything you want in there. And if there's an event available, it'll show up that way. So that's all I'm going to talk about the calendar today. Again, a lot of it is geared towards the states and the operators and the CEs they need. And but there are avenues for you if you want to learn more about a given topic to find maybe an event that's going on somewhere else that may be able to help you. If you click on Resource Library in the upper menu, it brings you to this page, and you can click on Document Search. Or if you scroll over the word Resource Library, Document Search will be one of the things that pop up there. And it's really set up the same way, but most of the time, if you're looking for a document, a video, a web page, a manual, a handbook, a bulletin, you're going to be looking on about a topic. You want to learn more about UV or whatever topic, you can search this way. So click on the select button, and again, your options are category, type, host, and state. And so the categories I'll get to in a minute, but under type, you have CDs, program spreadsheets, and everything listed here, videos. Those are growing. More and more people are putting videos online that are helping provide information on a specific topic. And we do have some Canadian documents in our thing, just because if they're useful to everyone. It's not necessarily a CEU related matter like an event is. If it's best practices for arsenic treatment, whether that comes from an organization in Canada or in the United States, it's obviously we're all doing basically the same thing. And so that's where you can look at state. You find stuff there, and then under host, it lists all the 800 organizations that we've vetted and we go to that have information available. Under the categories, some are water, some are wastewater, and some are both. So these are the categories. There's 32 total, and that just helps break down those 15,000 documents into a little bit smaller size. Usually there's still too many to highlight, but it's a way to get closer to the items you're looking for. And so you can pick a category, and then there's some that are universal, asset management, monitoring, financial management, all those things, water security, emergency response. They cover both sides of the equation there, and you can search for things under those topics. So we've vetted these. I have 4 staff. That's all they do. They go through and they find information. We read through it. We write a summary. We make sure it's available, and then put it on in our database so it's available to you. And so again, when you go back to the document search page, it brings you to this page, and then you can click on select. I clicked on arsenic. It shows that there's 187 records related to arsenic, which is quite a few. You can see there's a title, 12 steps to arsenic compliance. you click on that, it brings up that page or that document. There's a summary, some are longer, some are shorter, and then who's the host. And again, you'll be able to see right away, you know, the US EPA, Virginia Water Resources Research Center. There's, you know, all these 800 organizations come up here depending on what your search results are. I scrolled down through and went to number 39 and just clicked on it, arsenic removal and disposal for public water systems. So when you click on that, it pulls up another menu box or a pop-up box, and it's the document itself that you've downloaded now. And you can look through that. This is just a fact sheet. It's only 3 pages long, but it gives you some highlights on what they expect in the state of New Hampshire. Some of these from federal agencies and things like that as well. You can also search by host. So ABC, Association of Boards of Certification, they have 50 documents or so on their website, and we link to them. So when you click on this, it doesn't pull it from, like, we aren't storing these, we're taking you back to their page. The idea here is the same as it is for events. We want to make sure you understand who's hosting this stuff and where it's available from. It's just, this is a much better way to find things, especially when you go to some web pages for a large national organization. Probably the worst is the US EPA. I know there's over 1,500 documents on their website, and trying to find those is a nightmare. We catalog all of those, and so you can use our search to go through US EPA's documents and find things that might be related. If you're looking for a best practice or information about, you know, they've started some online tools for the rules in the states anyway, for instance. And so, you know, Water Environment Federation, for you wastewater operators out there, everything that they have publicly available. Some things are behind a firewall and you have to be a member, which I am a member, but anything that's available, which is a lot of great wastewater information, you can click on these and see. You can read through what it is. It's a case study. A lot of times those are the most helpful things because it's real world examples of how a particular topic's been dealt with by a community or a utility. And so all those are available that way. I mentioned EPA, 1,583 documents. You know, that's a lot. And, you know, some of their pages are updated. Some of them haven't been for a while. So in some cases, you can't even find some of these documents on their webpage anymore unless you have the specific URL. And that's just the nature of being such a large organization with such a large website. And so you can find those here depending on your topic. Again, for any of these, like if I wanted to look for CUPS, which CUPS stands for Checkup Program for Small Systems. It's the second one listed here. It's a software they developed a long time ago, like in 2005, that allows you to do your own asset management. It's actually dated, and we're not sure what the future of CUPS is, but if you have a version and you've used it in the past, anything related to CUPS would be on here, and you can find a lot of information that they've had in the past as well about that software. You can also just search by keyword filter. RTCR stands for Revised Total Coliform Rule, which was just changed in the States. It's a big issue related to how people sample and all those things. So there's 66 documents here related to RTCR. And you can also go in there and select, if you wanted to, something like type and say you only want handouts or only want you know, software, CDs, and spreadsheets. And if there's anything available, it'll show up. So I got ahead of myself. So I said fact sheets and case studies. 15 of those 66 were related to that. So I can go in and say videos. When I took the screenshot, there were only 3 and they're all from the Department of Iowa. So Iowa took the effort to make videos for their operators on how to deal with RTCR and what's needed, the summary, how to do the level 1 assessments, all that stuff. But it's available to everybody. And so if you're an operator that deals with RTCR, it's an example of you can go to this website and see what's going on and get at least a feel for that new rule. So going back to the arsenic rule, the way this is really helpful to you as an operator is if you're dealing with a situation like you have arsenic, you know, I'm assuming at least part of BC is glaciated, like Illinois is about 2/3 glaciated. And we have a real problem with our sand and gravel aquifers having arsenic in them. But at the same time, we know that you can remove arsenic just by removing iron. It co-precipitates with iron. And so if that's new news to you and you hadn't realized that and your wells are in sand and gravel, you can go in here and go to click arsenic for category. And then I'm going to put iron in the keyword, and that narrows it down to 34 documents. So as I start looking through these, number 8 is entitled Arsenic Removal During Iron Removal. It's exactly what I'm looking for. You know, in Illinois, some of our operators have actually added iron, even though that increases the amount of time or how frequent they have to backflow their system. But by adding extra iron, you can also reduce more arsenic. And to get under that 10 ppb, that's a solution that at least it avoids having to add, you know, a new treatment plant, or at least add on to your treatment plant, which could be very expensive. So if we click on that, this is actually a presentation from US EPA from 2004, still relevant today. I use this example a lot because it's a really great one. Darren Lytle's one of the foremost experts on arsenic in the world, honestly. And so they do a lot of research there and coming up with new solutions. And this is from a case study they did in Michigan. And so what they did is they took a real plant in Michigan. This is the layout of the plant, and they added chlorine. So when they did that at the end, they saw 50% arsenic removal. You know, adding the chlorine oxidizes the iron and removes both. And so it just causes them to have to backflush more. Like I said, when they moved it back behind the filters, they're still getting 50% removal. But then when they put it back at the wells, before it ever gets in the plant, now they're getting 75% arsenic removal, where they were only getting 50. They've done nothing different but changed the place where they put the chlorine in, so it has more time to work on the iron and precipitate that out, you know, and aerate it better. You know, chlorine's an oxidant, so the same amount of chlorine just put in at a different spot in their treatment train gave them a better arsenic removal. So it's information like this that's available. You can also search on hosts. You can look through the hosts and see who's there. You know, I work a lot with RCAP. They're nationwide in the states. They have staff in every state, and they're technical assistance providers. And so they put out a lot of good information out on best practices, what to do in case of, you know, certain kinds of events, all that sort of stuff. And so you can search. They're known, or they certainly have a stake in the game of helping with energy efficiency. So if I just plug in energy in the keyword filter along with the host being RCAP, those are the two filters we're using. You can see there's 7 documents, or I think a couple of these are videos on energy efficiency and what to do. This is just a short and simple web page, an article that Scott Straley, who was with our Ohio RCAP at the time, wrote on some work they were doing, looking at helping communities in Ohio reduce their energy output and energy use. I mean, you can look on category. Most of these are going to have a lot. Like I said, there's only 32 categories for the 15,000 documents. So in this case, under stormwater, we have 612. As you go through those, the city of Waukesha, Wisconsin, this is a cost comparison for their Interceptor sewer analysis that an engineering firm did for them. So you can click on that and pull that up, and it actually is a case study that shows them, they made this public. It's from their engineering firm that did the study for them to look at what the costs were going to be, so they can make an informed decision on where to move forward with their improving their sewer system. And this is actually given at the Central States Water Environment Association conference. And you can kind of see that in the bottom there. Videos. So this is an older slide. It's from April, I believe. There's 432 videos that are all water or wastewater operator related. And these include things like things for the public that you can share with your customers, that sort of thing. When I did this again just yesterday, now there's 657. Like I said, there's a lot of videos available. We're learning, you know, the private well class was mentioned earlier. We have a 10-lesson class that people can take for free if they're a private well owner. Anyone can take it for free. And I get more comments about not wanting to read. People would rather have videos and that sort of thing. That's the world we live in today. I'm older, so I'm not in that world, but I understand it's a great way to get information and keep people's attention. And so we're seeing more and more of these. We find them, we watch them, We write a summary of what they are. Work for Water is a website that was set up by American Water Association and WEF, and WEF recently redid it, updated it, and it's a great site to find information about jobs in the water and wastewater industry, for instance. But if I say consumer information, which is also one of the categories, there's only 21 records. And so you can look through those and see, the third one there from the Groundwater Foundation about communicating the value of water. I know we all struggle with helping people understand how lucky they are to have community water supplies. We get it all the time that people don't think so, they're worried. And as someone who works a lot with private well owners and the issues some of them have, and the fact that I grew up on an old dug well that was only 14 foot deep and was hand dug by my grandpa in 1933, having safe, dependable water from a community water supply is an important thing and a message we really need to get out as much as we can. Operation and maintenance. Again, we're just looking at videos, 126. And as I scroll through those, number 47 was how to repair a water main break in 8 easy steps. Well, if you've been involved with repairing a water main break, there's usually more than 8 easy steps. So this really caught my attention. It's only 2 minutes and 39 seconds long. And so, but when you click on it and look at it, it's actually the Village of Downers Grove, which is a suburb of Chicago, put this up, and they actually put this up there for their staff. So when they hire somebody new, they have a set of videos they have them watch just so they get the basics and they understand. Obviously, they're going to learn a lot the first time they have to go out and help repair a water main break, but it's a way to give them, what the standard procedure is, and that's really what this video is. And someone decided to name it that, which is kind of clever, I guess. Again, you can also use a keyword filter. Here we typed in wastewater. There are 193 videos on wastewater. Again, some of them are 5 minutes and have a 1-line summary. Some of them are 1 hour and 53 minutes from a webinar, and it's got a lot of information. And so we've tried to include that so you can get an idea of whether that video is something you want to spend the time watching and deal with. Again, RCAP has a lot of information out there. If you're looking for wastewater videos, they have a number of them. And preparing your wastewater system for disasters and emergencies, when you click on that, it brings up this Vimeo that they developed. It's 8 minutes long. It walks through some of the basic things you need to consider, what you should do in advance, what to do during. It's just, a lot of best practices and things that they tell their clients, their communities they work with. And it's a lot of useful information. So in addition to those things, which is really the meat of our website, is the event calendar and the document search, and that certainly gets the most traffic. But we also have a blog and a few other things. And a lot of times, most people don't subscribe to our blog per se, but they subscribe to our newsletter, which lists the more recent blog posts on those. And it's really a useful way to find that information. But going through the blog list, if you click on our blog under resource library, you can see all the different categories where we've done blog posts. And I just highlighted one here that was done in 2019 on asset management, how to do plans. And these are all usually from somebody else. We're just highlighting those events or those documents and making those available, and with a summary of what we see as useful in each one. Here's just another one on liquid flow velocities using a Badger meter calculator here, and how that's done, and some examples that are provided. Under operator careers and training, I'm not going to show all the information here because we do have a web page that highlights all the Work for Water lists all the 2-year and 4-year programs in the United States that are for water and wastewater related careers. Our site lists all the operator schools that may be a semester or a year long that provide those same trainings, and most of the time they're preparing you to take an exam in the state you live in. And so that's part of this page, but we've also went around and we've interviewed operators. Why are you, how did you get into the water business? If you're from a really small system, almost everyone has a really interesting story about how they got into the water business, how they became the community's water operator. Most of them had no idea they were going to be doing what they're doing today. when they graduated high school or whatever. It's just something that seems to come up and happen, and everyone's got a unique story, and we tried to capture some of those. But this web page under careers in water operations lists a lot of useful information on comparable salaries, what you need to know, where the need to know criteria are, all those sorts of things. And so it's a useful page, especially if someone contacts you who's interested in getting into the profession, if you will. I mentioned we have a class. We have one class. We're not in this business to be a competitor with all the trainers out there, but we were asked by US EPA to create a non-community water system, groundwater and wells class. And so we did that. And then as we started reaching out to the states to get CEU credit, many of them asked that it also be available to their community water system operators. And so we do have a class that's worth CEUs in about 24 states. Every state has their own rules for certification, just like BC does. And so some states don't allow any online education to count for credit, and some have a lot of hoops that we just don't have the bandwidth to jump through in order to provide CEU credit. So it's only available for credit in about half the states. This is what that looks like. It's based on our private well class, just on the geology, groundwater, concerns about water quality type of information that you'd need as an operator. And it runs through basics just to, a lot of folks rely on their engineering firms or their consultant to deal with their well. The more you know about your well and the geology you have and where your water's coming from, the better you're going to be at understanding when something changes or if you have a problem. Water from bedrock can be much different than water from sand and gravel. And even water in bedrock, it depends on the unit you're in, whether it's, if it's a dolomite or versus a sandstone versus if you're in an area where there might be karst. Those types of geologies usually are more susceptible to contamination. And so there's a lot of that type of useful information in here. And as you go through it, there's some short videos. It's all highlighted with images, and there's also text to understand. At the end of each one, there's a quiz to take. And once you've passed all that, after the 6 lessons, it tells you, what your score is. And then if you're in a state where you're looking for CEU credit in that state, there's a list at the beginning that tells you that, and you can then use that certificate that's printed to get credit for it. Again, as I mentioned, this is the only class we've developed, and it's the only one we plan to. But if you're looking for information, you can contact us, call us, or email us, and I'll talk about that more in a minute. But the other thing I wanted to bring up today was that we have a newsletter. It goes out every 2 weeks. It's the Thewateroperator.org Newsletter. We actually have 3 newsletters. If you look at the bottom here, the technology news comes out once a month, and tribal utility news is really for tribes and those that work with tribes in the US. We do certainly work with First Nations information that's available in Canada. And a lot of times in our newsletter, we'll highlight things that are going on in Canada because it's useful for everybody to understand the issues and what they deal with for some of these water systems that may be more remote and not as technologically savvy, if you will. So when you scroll down this page, it shows you the past newsletters. I'm just going to show you 2 of them. And if you go further down the page, you'll see the technology news and tribal utility news. Again, those come out once a month. But they're all worth getting. They come as an email. There's no fluff. It's all useful information. So this is the March 31st one. After the COVID really became an issue for everyone, we created a resources page working with RCAP and their TA providers that hopefully just has basic information that is useful to you as an operator on the things you need to do. Obviously, we're well down that road today. But when this first happened, there was a lot of confusion about what needed to be done. And it's still something good to review that summarizes, what's available in some of the tools. Just like it's really one of the things we've seen is that it's really helped communities and utilities understand why they need an emergency response plan. And many didn't, or they have one, but it was developed 15 years ago and it's sitting with a lot of dust on the shelf. There's a great example of one of those plans and how to prepare for the next type of pandemic in here from, I think it's from the Great Lakes RCAP group. And this was done as a pandemic demonstration about 8 years ago. And so those folks were prepared, and there's just, again, a lot of useful stuff there. Just another example, this is from September of 18. And a lot of this type of information we're putting in our newsletter every month or every 2 weeks, so that it's something that might be relevant to you. And our staff have developed this texting thing. So you can text tap water to 444-999. You'll get a response back asking you to confirm and provide your email address. And then it'll add you to our newsletter list. And so if you're interested, you could do that way, or you can go to our webpage and click on newsletter, and there's a sign up there, and you can decide which newsletters you want to get, those that are relevant to you. So last thing here, we have a YouTube page where we have put things, some of these presentations, like not today's, I know it's being recorded, I think, by EOCP, but we do webinars monthly and on different topics, and those are all here. We have one, our communications person has been doing social media work since the early 2000s when it first came out. And so, you know, YouTube wasn't even developed till 2005, which is really crazy to me now. But we have videos on how you can use the internet and social media in your workplace. So if you're into that and you're interested, you know, I find, you know, I grew up in I grew up on a farm outside of a small community in Illinois of 350. But what I've learned is that most of the people that I went to high school with, which has been, it'll be 40 years ago in 2 years, so 38 years ago, we still connect on Facebook. And small communities especially, there seems to be a lot of folks who are using Facebook as one example. And so it's a way for you to start a group for your community, your water system, or if you have a communications group that can do that for you, that's great. But it's a way to tell people when things are happening, give them tidbits about, you know, here's how much our chlorine cost this last month, you know, whatever, so that people understand the value of what you provide as an operator and as a public water supply. So that's what I have for today. That's my email address. You're welcome. If you get on our website and you're not following things that I provided today, and you'd like to go through that, I'm 2 hours ahead of you. It's 3:40 p.m. here, but give me a call. I'll sit down in front of my computer. We can walk through things, try to find things. And if you can't find it on our website, you don't have a problem using our site, but we just don't have it, you can email us. And if you go to our webpage, there's also a phone number you can call. But if you email us and say, hey, I'm looking for information about this, one of my staff will try to find it. And if we don't have it, we'll go on to Google and go out in the on the web, and we'll see if we can't find anything for you that's freely available to provide you. So again, our job is to help operators, and you know, we work a lot with certain groups in Canada. EOCP is one, Health Canada is another, and they're all looking out for for the public good. And so I guess that's what I have today. And I'm not sure how this works as far as questions, or if someone is monitoring questions and is going to read those.
We got you covered, Steve.
I figured you did. Sorry, man.
Thank you very much for that presentation. It looks like there's some great resources out there for operators. We have one question here for you. It says, can training providers use the free public documents from the website in their courses?
Well, they're not our documents, so you'd need to talk to the organization that provided them. But we can help you with that, because you know, those are publicly available on the web, so they'd be subject to the same copyright and the same use restrictions as anything else you find on the web. We just put it all together for you to make it easy to find. So yeah, you need to talk to the organization. So I know, like for our private well class, I've used a lot of those figures, like you said, from the USGS. You know, if it's a public agency, like a state agency or a federal agency in the States, that's considered public information, and you can use it as long as you attribute it. So like we had a little logo there under one of those diagrams that said USGS in 1989 or whatever, and as long as you're giving them some credit. But if it's an association, like a state AWA section or Water Environment Association section, or Water Environment Association, then you'd need to ask them for permission, I imagine.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. That's the only question we have for today. On behalf of the EOCP, thank you for joining us today. And to everybody out there, we're going to take a 15-minute break to set up for the next session. So thanks again, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.